Jiang Yinyan didn't answer her. He let go of her, and his expression became even colder and more fierce. He ordered the driver to head towards the hotel, his tone so heavy it was terrifying. Yunyan's heart was in turmoil, growing increasingly anxious. For a moment, she wanted to send her location to Qiaomin or Yuanzhou for help, but then she fell into deep despair. Even if they came, what could they do? Given Jiang Yinyan's temperament, it might even endanger them. The car drove toward the hotel. When they reached the entrance, Jiang Yinyan actually got out of the car. Soon, Lao Lu got in. It seemed that Mo La was staying at this hotel. Jiang Yinyan merely gave Lao Lu a cold order. Go seal the kiln. Yinyan listened to Jiang Yinyan say these 3 words, but had no idea what place he was referring to. Lao Lu, on the other hand, was stunned. He turned around and looked at Jiang Yinyan, then at Yinyan. This glance completely shattered Yunyan's heart. She subconsciously asked, what place is that? Jiang Yinyan's expression was icy cold. Lao Lu's face didn't look right. He cleared his throat and asked, Young Master Jiang, you've never gone to such a place before. Today, drive. Jiang Yinyan's tone remained indifferent, but it was like ice chilling to the bone. So cold that even Lao Lu didn't dare to say another word. Yinyan felt something was seriously wrong. Lao Lu was someone who had weathered many storms, yet his face changed when he mentioned that place. She subconsciously grabbed Jiang Yinyan's arm and pleaded humbly, Young Master Jiang, I really have nothing with Mr. C. Jiang Yinyan remained silent. His reaction left Yunyan at a loss. Her heart began to beat irregularly, and a sense of unease grew in the depths of her heart. Lao Lu glanced at the rearview mirror without showing any emotion, his eyes and brows filled with worry. When Yunyan regained consciousness, she found that the road was getting more and more remote. The street lamps around them emitted dim light. It was as if crossing the end of the neon lights led to a desolate and hopeless purgatory. Moreover, she wasn't in the same car anymore. Only then did she realize that she had been knocked unconscious by Jiang Yinyan in the car. She had no idea how long they had been driving. Yunyan shuddered and looked out the window. It was too dark outside, with no sign of life. There was only one concrete building in sight, and from inside the car, she couldn't tell how many floors it had. It was just that industrial style. Take her in, Jiang Yinyan ordered indifferently. Lao Lu turned off the engine, turned around to look at Jiang Yinyan, and his tone was somewhat reluctant. Young Master Jiang, this place will scare Miss you. Scare? Jiang Yinyan suddenly smiled, turned his head to look at Yunyan, and gently stroked her head with his hand. The spoiled rich girl who grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth should finally get a taste of true humanity. Isn't she here to run around for the future of the Yu family? Yunyan, only if you can walk out of here can you talk about your ideals and ambitions. Yunyan's lips trembled uncontrollably. Even before getting off the car, she already felt an unprecedented fear. Old Lu sighed softly, Young Master Jiang. Old Lu, are you feeling sorry for her? Jiang Yinyan reached out and slightly adjusted his tie, his brows subtly darkening with a hint of hostility. Old Lu, upon hearing this, felt a shiver run down his spine and dared not say another word. Yinyan was pulled into the building by Old Lu, while Jiang Yinyan didn't get off the car and was driven away by the staff here. Once inside, Yunyan realized that the interior was completely different from what it looked like from the outside. The exterior seemed like an ordinary building, so ordinary that even if she passed by it during the day, she wouldn't think of entering. The environment inside was dim, with dazzling lights, and the figures of men and women appeared ghostly and hazy. The music was loud, and the scent of makeup and men's sweat was strong. From time to time, she could hear the laughter of men and the screams of women. Yunyan was extremely repulsed by the smell here, a stench of filth and lust. She was so scared that she wouldn't budge no matter how Old Lu tried to pull her. What kind of place is this? She asked in terror. Old Lu looked troubled and didn't tell her what this place was. Instead, he said, Miss you, no matter what happens, just endure it. Some things will pass if you just hold on. What do you mean? What could happen? Yunyan's heart was pounding. Old Lu, I want to see young Master Jiang. Please help me or call him. Her phone had been taken away and left in the car. Old Lu's expression was complex as he said indifferently, Sorry, miss you. This is young Master Jiang's order. At that moment, someone from here approached. 2 burly men in suits, followed by a seductive woman, came forward. The woman looked to be in her 30s, with a graceful figure. As she got closer, a strong scent of roses wafted from her. It was a very good rose fragrance, indicating the expensive perfume she wore. Yunyan tried to back away, but the next second, she was held back by the men. The leading woman stepped forward and reached out to touch Yunyan's face, but she dodged and coldly shouted, Don't touch me. The woman was taken aback and looked at Old Lu, her eyes showing hesitation. Old Lu stepped forward and whispered something in her ear. The woman suddenly understood and ordered the men, take her to change clothes. Yunyan was almost dragged away. She screamed in terror. "Who are you people? Let me go." After Yunyan's voice faded at the end of the long corridor, the woman asked old Lu, "Why does she look so familiar to me?" Old Lu's expression turned cold. "Have you lost your mind? Don't ask what you shouldn't." And the woman raised her eyebrows and looked at him. After a long while, old Lu said, "Don't throw her into the kiln." The woman chuckled and gently poked old Lu's solid chest with her slender fingers, her demeanor alluring. "Is this your master's idea, or your own?" To be honest, old Lu wasn't that old. He was at the prime age of man, though not as handsome as Jiang Yinyan. He had thick, rugged brows that gave him a strong, masculine look, but his eyes were cold and fierce, a result of following Jiang Yinyan through many life-and-death situations. Or perhaps, after accompanying Jiang Yinyan through so many experiences, the warmth of humanity had long vanished from his eyes. Seeing that he didn't respond, the woman leaned closer, her slender arm wrapping around his neck. "Since you care, why don't you go into the kiln? Don't worry, I'll only let you in. Anyway, you'll both be wearing masks, so she won't recognize you. Just enjoy yourself." Old Lu's expression hardened, and he pushed her away. "Do as I say." With that, he turned and walked away. The woman leaned against the wall, her body soft and boneless, and smiled. What a hypocrite, she thought. Clearly, he had desires too. Yunyan's clothes were in a mess, torn to shreds by the two old ladies changing her clothes. But she still clung tightly to every shred of fabric on her body, refusing to wear the clothes they wanted her to put on. Those weren't clothes at all, just a few strips of fabric that couldn't even cover her privacy, full of intense sexual allure. One of the old ladies was big and burly with a face full of wrinkles. She could probably hold 3 Yunyans in her body. She stood there with her hands on her hips, panting from exhaustion, and pointed at her, acting so high and mighty. "Do you think you're something special? Everyone who comes here is just a cheap whore looking for money, and you won't even let us touch you. I spit on you. Those men will be easier to deal with than us in a while." Yunyan's hair was disheveled, and she was barefoot, standing 8 feet away from them. The high heels she had been wearing were torn apart in the struggle, one here and one there. She stared at them intently, with blood streaks on her exposed shoulders. "What is this place? What do you mean by for money? What do you want from me?" The other middle-aged woman looked dry and withered, but her face was full of malice, and she had an especially strong grip. The blood streaks on Yunyan's body were from her. She sneered, "Stop pretending. You're here to sell your body for money, aren't you? Don't tell me you don't know about the sealed kiln. Once you're in here, the more men who like you, the more money you'll make." Yunyan struggled to suppress her trembling body and said, "I don't know this place. I didn't come here voluntarily. You can't force me. This is illegal. I can report you." The fat woman was stunned for a moment when she heard this, then burst into laughter as if she had heard a joke. "Once you're in here, you've signed a death warrant. You still want to report us? Little girl, wait until you can walk out of here upright before you talk. Stop talking nonsense. Refuse to change clothes, huh? Then you'll get a whipping first." The thin woman had no patience and grabbed the leather belt beside her, ready to strike. The metal buckle at the end of the belt would be lethal if it hit her. Yunyan quickly dodged, and the belt hit the ground, the metal buckle sparking. Yunyan was shocked. This woman was incredibly strong. The thin woman didn't expect her to dodge, and was about to strike again when a soft voice said, "Stop." Yunyan gasped for breath and looked up. It was the seductive woman from earlier, apparently the one in charge here. The 2 women in the room immediately started complaining. "Sister Qin, this slut won't change her clothes no matter what. If you ask me, just give her a beating first. Once she's obedient, there won't be so many problems." Sister Qin spoke in a light tone. "We haven't let the customers choose yet. If we break her, she won't be worth anything. Can you 2 afford to compensate?" The 2 women fell silent. "If you don't want to change clothes, then don't." "Sister, but don't say I didn't warn you. If you go out like this, those men will be even more excited. You'll suffer a lot then. Those guys have all kinds of tricks when it comes to women." Sister Qin smiled faintly and added, "You'll wish you were dead but can't die." "Sister Qin," Yunyan staggered forward and grabbed her arm. "You know I didn't come here voluntarily. I can give you money. Let me go." Sister Qin didn't push her away and let her hold onto her. She looked at Yunyan for a long time and said, "I know you didn't come here voluntarily and that you're different from the other girls here. But so what? You know who sent you here. Don't say I didn't warn you. Even if I could let you go, where would you go? Little girl, this is the sealed kiln, a place of absolute privacy for men to enjoy themselves. You'll see things here that you can't even imagine in your lifetime. You'll think it's no different from a den of demons." Her tone remained calm throughout, with a sense of numbness and indifference towards all the joys and sorrows of the world. "But little girl, I'll tell you, no matter how cruel it is here, it's nothing compared to the outside. The real sealed kiln is in this eating society, in the hearts of the dirty people. Yunyan's body stiffened. She didn't expect Sister Qin to say such words. Sister Qin gently pushed her hand away and said, "So, little girl, I can't help you. You'll have to fend for yourself." Then she calmly commanded towards the outside, "Come in." 2 bodyguards entered from outside and walked towards Yunyan. Yunyan's heart pounded with alarm, and she kept backing away. Sister Qin said, "No need to change clothes. Just take her away." In the next moment, Yunyan was seized by the bodyguards and dragged out. Her desperate struggles and cries were of no avail. The 2 women in the room also left. Sister Qin subconsciously glanced at the camera in the room and left without a word. Yunyan was dragged along, her arms turning blue from the bodyguard's grip. The deeper they went, the stranger the rooms became, resembling cave dwellings. Some doors were tightly shut, while others were wide open. The rooms varied in size, but the furnishings inside were luxurious. The designs of the rooms were all different. As they passed by one room, Yunyan heard a woman scream. Through the open door, Yunyan saw a naked woman lying on a table, with a man like a fat pig frantically moving on top of her. There were 3 or 4 other men around her, and one of them, perhaps too excited, was biting the woman's breast hard. The woman struggled in pain, but she couldn't resist the men and was held down tightly. Yunyan's legs turned to jelly when she was pulled away by the bodyguards. She could faintly see the situations in the other rooms as well. They were all beautiful girls with several men each. The men were all wearing masks and leering. She also saw several men hanging a rather young girl in a pool over 3 meters high. Before the girl was nearly drowned, she was pulled out and played with like a dead fish. Yunyan was dragged the entire way, her arms bruised by the bodyguard's grip. The deeper they went, the stranger the rooms became, like a series of caves. Some doors were shut tight, others were wide open. The rooms varied in size, but the furnishings within were lavish and expensive, though each room's design was different. Passing one room, she heard a woman scream. Through the open door, Yunyan saw a naked woman lying on a table. A man, fat as a pig, was moving frantically on top of her. 3 or 4 other men surrounded her. One of them, perhaps overly excited, was biting down hard on the woman's breast. The woman struggled in pain, but she was no match for the men who held her down firmly. By the time the bodyguards pulled Yunyan away, her legs had gone completely weak. She could vaguely make out the situations in a few other rooms. In each, beautiful girls were with several men at once. The men all wore masks, their grins vile and savage. She also saw several men dunking a very young girl in a pool over 3 meters high. They would pull her out just before she drowned, toying with a person as if they were handling a dead fish. Deep despair washed over Yunyan. She bit her lip hard, feeling as if she could already see the fate that awaited her. Yunyan was pushed into a cage. The cage was actually made of gold, and being locked inside made one feel like a canary in a gilded cage. But at least a canary received affection. Her current situation was perilous. The cage hung from a chain on a track. As it moved forward, the chain made a clanking sound that drilled into her ears, making her heart pound with panic. But hers wasn't the only cage moving. Other clanking sounds came from all directions, rising and falling, though she couldn't see their source. Finally, the cage was pushed into a room. Compared to the others, the room she was in wasn't large. Apart from a glass window on the door, it had no other windows. There was a palace-style bed and a sofa, but the most prominent feature was a large pool in the center of the room, from which a rich fragrance wafted. It seemed to be a hot spring. Yunyan was roughly pulled out. She cautiously surveyed her surroundings. Soon, the door opened. She flinched and retreated to a corner. About a dozen men filed in, tall and short, fat and thin. They wore black, robe-like garments with sashes at the waist, clearly designed to be taken off and put on with ease. It must have been their uniform. Besides obscuring their distinct features, it was also the best way to conceal their identities, which was why they all wore masks and didn't know each other. With their true identities hidden, their desires would be unleashed to the extreme from behind the masks, and the greed and vileness of human nature would be displayed without restraint. Yunyan couldn't hide in a dark corner. There were no dark corners in the room. The dazzling light from above exposed her completely. In other words, her appearance at this very moment was laid bare before the eyes of every man present. As expected, every man who entered the room gasped in admiration upon seeing her and began to comment on her from head to toe. This chick is something else. Her body is fucking incredible. That little waist is so delicate. A waist like that is best for grabbing from behind. Her skin is so fair and tender. I'll have to get a good taste of that later. I can't fucking wait. Start the damn bidding already. One of them, a burly man with a short temper, slammed his fist into the wall. There was a light strip on the door, and the man's blow caused it to flash with jarring, multicolored lights. Yunyan was terrified, her lips trembling. Even though the men before her wore masks, She could easily feel their malice and greed. Soon, someone pushed the door open again. This time it was 4 bodyguards. They walked straight toward Yunyan. "What are you doing? Don't touch me," Yunyan cried out in anger. But the bodyguard's grip was strong, pinning her securely. They fastened things like handcuffs and ankle cuffs to her wrists and ankles. One end had a clasp attached to a sturdy metal wire rope. After it was locked into a metal buckle hanging from the ceiling, a series of clicks echoed through the air. Then, a force pulled Yunyan upward. Before she even had time to scream, she was suspended in midair, suspended over the hot spring. Her hands and feet were immobilized, the metal wires pulled taut in 4 directions. She couldn't break free. The 4 bodyguards exited the room without a sound. The men grew excited. They all got in the hot spring pool, eagerly reaching out to grope Yunyan's body. Waves of nausea washed over Yunyan. She struggled desperately, trying to evade the men's hands. But there were too many of them, their hands coming from all directions. No matter which way she turned, she couldn't escape them. The men grinned savagely. One of them said with a lecherous look, "Top-quality goods. A true stunner." Yunyan thrashed, her eyes turning red. Fury and hatred. Suddenly, a bell rang from above. An elegant, soothing melody played, completely at odds with the filthy, cruel, and lustful atmosphere. Upon hearing the music, the men unexpectedly withdrew their hands and stopped touching her. They sat down around the edge of the pool, seemingly waiting for something. Soon, Yunyan knew what they were waiting for. A gentle woman's voice drifted out from the speakers in the corner of the room. Yunyan was not unfamiliar with this voice. It was Sister Qin. "I know you're all impatient, but calm down. You'll scare the little lady." A man shouted, "Stop keeping us in suspense. Let's get started." Sister Qin let out a chuckle, then said the word "all right" in an impossibly seductive tone. Then they heard Sister Qin announce a figure, starting at 3 million. Same old rules. Each person only gets 2 bids. Those who can't keep up with the price must leave the room. Starting at 3 million? That's not a low number. A fat man with large ears sneered, his whole body jiggling as he laughed. The goods are different, so the price is naturally different. You all know what kind of quality enters this room. It's absolutely top tier. I've set a low price. If you gentlemen feel it's not worth it, you are free to leave now. Sister Qin's voice remained gentle, but every word she spoke was sharp and precise. Yunyan stared intently at the scene. To her disappointment, not a single man left. "We came to this room for the top-tier stuff. What's with all the bullshit?" "I'll add 1 million, someone called out, starting the bidding. Yunyan could see now that no one who could enter this room was short on money. But if they were all so wealthy, they must be either powerful or influential. Among more than a dozen men, could it be that no one recognized her? The circle of the elite wasn't that large. The only plausible explanation was that even if any of these men did recognize her, they wouldn't show it. Since she had been brought here, in their eyes, she was simply something to be defiled and ravaged. Never mind whether she could get out. Even if she did, neither she nor any of the men involved would ever speak of this. Yunyan felt as if she were enveloped in a giant net, trapped and suffocated by despair. In a daze, she heard Sister Qin's voice again. "Gentlemen, please think carefully before you bid, because at most, only 5 people can remain in this room." As soon as she finished speaking, a flurry of bids rose and fell from the men. Yunyan felt no relief at Sister Qin's words, only deeper despair. Soon, the high prices had filtered out half the men. Finally, only 6 remained in the room. One of them suddenly shouted a much higher number. The room fell into a brief silence. Sister Qin's voice reminded them, "You have 5 minutes to make a decision." After a short while, one man left, sighing and shaking his head. As the door opened, he cast a lingering, reluctant look back, his eyes full of greed for the woman's exquisite body. But the price was clearly too high for him to match, so he could only grit his teeth and leave. At the same time, a masked man who was quite small and thin happened to be passing by. He glanced into the room casually. He had already walked past when he suddenly realized something. He turned back and rushed toward the room he had just seen. He threw the door open. His eyes immediately fell on the woman suspended above the hot spring pool, her clothes in disarray. Though her hair was a mess, her face was clearly visible. The men in the room were displeased. One of them barked, "Who's this rule breaker barging in? We're at the 5-person bidding stage. Get out." Since everyone was masked and in this room, no one knew the identity of the person behind the mask, so they couldn't afford to offend anyone lightly. The small man apologized profusely and left the room. As soon as the door closed, the man muttered "fuck" to himself several times. The more he thought about it, the more wrong it felt, and he took off running. He bumped into a waiter and grabbed him. "I have an emergency. Let me borrow a phone." The waiter shook his head and said that cell phones weren't allowed here. The staff used walkie-talkies to communicate. The man was anxious. "Then I'll get my phone." Take me to the locker room. The waiter asked him, Sir, I'm sorry, but you can only go to the locker room to get your phone once you have confirmed that you are leaving. And once you've confirmed your departure, you won't be allowed back in today. The man gritted his teeth. Fine, I'm leaving. When only 5 men were left in the room, the bidding entered its final stage. Each person had only one final bid left. Following the order, one of them named an extremely high price. The other 4 sneered. It was clear he was trying to have her all to himself. Yunyan's limbs were numb from being suspended for so long. She felt cold all over, as if her blood were flowing backward. She didn't know who among these 5 men would remain. If her fate was sealed, if heaven had decreed that she must suffer this disaster, then all she could do was pray that the last man standing would have a shred of humanity. However, to her horror, the remaining 4 men didn't immediately place a bid. They looked at each other, and although she couldn't see their expressions behind the masks, Yunyan had a sinking feeling. This was not good. Sure enough, one of them, the burly man who had impatiently punched the wall, announced loudly and extravagantly, "We'll match the price." Yunyan didn't understand what he meant by match the price until she heard Sister Chin's coquettish laughter from the speakers. What a generous bunch you are. This room has really brought in a fortune for our establishment tonight. You're all matching the same price, correct? Please confirm. The 5 men all said confirmed. Yunyan understood in an instant. Only 5 people could stay in this room, and naturally, the highest bidders would win. But if the other 4 could all meet the same price, then they could all stay. Realizing this, Yunyan trembled all over. She struggled frantically like a madwoman. The more she struggled, the more excited the men became. This little filly is quite wild. No matter how wild she is, a little dose of something will tame her. Don't give her anything just yet. It's more fun when they're wild. So you're into that, are you? The one who liked them wild was the burly man. He laughed arrogantly. I love to ride a wild mare. Last time, there was this chick who was pretty wild too. I played with her for over 3 hours, and she still had the nerve to kick me with her legs. Guess what I did to her? The other 4 were quite curious. It was clear they had reached a consensus on their amusement. Whether they knew each other or not, when it came to discussing this sort of thing, they were completely uninhibited. The man said with a laugh, "Daring to kick me, she must have been tired of living." I dislocated both her legs right then and there. Without 2 legs, she was even more fun to fuck. It was right in the room across the hall. Damn, I even got covered in her blood. The other 4 men roared with laughter. Yunyan heard every word clearly. It was more than a chill. It was like being plunged into an icy abyss. She believed he was telling the truth, because the other 4 didn't seem surprised at all. This could only mean that this group of men who came here for pleasure had extremely perverted interests, and this place was like a lawless hell where men could do whatever they wanted. She finally understood what Jiang Yinyan had meant. But at the same time, she hated Jiang Yinyan. If she didn't make it out of here alive, she swore she would become a vengeful ghost and come for his life. Sister Chin's coquettish laughter continued. Since you've all decided, very well, the 5-person den is established. Remember, you only have 12 hours. No overtime. A man laughed. I used to think 12 hours was enough. But looking at this girl, damn, even 7 days and 7 nights wouldn't be enough. Another man sneered, deliberately glancing down at the speaker's crotch. He didn't say anything about that, but instead asked, "Can we do a raw feast with this chick? I'll add money." At these words, the other 4 men fell silent. Yunyan's heart pounded wildly. She didn't understand what it meant, but she felt a greater terror creeping in. Something that could startle the other 4 men couldn't possibly be simple. Soon, the burly man followed suit. Fuck, exciting. I'm getting hard just hearing about it. Count me in. I'll match the price. When the other 3 heard this, their excitement surged. Same. We'll match. After we're done playing, a raw feast would be perfect. Now that's what I call a truly satisfying experience for body and soul. The man who had proposed it described with relish. Sounds like you've done it before. Of course. Unforgettable, the man said, his tone wistful. After you're done, wash her clean, feed her some drugs, then make the first cut from her most tender part. TSK, TSK. Even a woman's screams are ecstatic. Animals. Beasts. Yunyan didn't know what kind of place this was, nor did she know the specifics of what they were talking about. But just from listening, she knew they were breaking the law. This was a crime. How could such a place exist? Why was no one regulating them? Or this place? What? Sister Chin sounded slightly surprised on the other end. Yunyan felt her heart sink and sink and sink. Even when the Yu family had fallen, she had never felt this hopeless. At this moment, she truly understood what it meant to be fish on a chopping block. A true matter of life and death. The 5 men urged Sister Chin. What's the deal? Is it a yes or a no? When Sister Chin's voice came from the speakers, it sounded very displeased. No. Yunyan's heart skipped a beat. The 5 men were clearly disappointed. No physical harm is allowed. Other than that, you can play however you want. As her voice faded, the metal wires binding Yunyan's wrists and ankles suddenly loosened, and she plunged into the hot spring. For the past 2 days, Zhang Xianwen had been holed up in the clubhouse. When he wasn't eating, he was playing cards or video games, and when he got tired, he slept. The Zhang family had called him several times, but he refused to come home, claiming his soul had been grievously wounded and he needed some time away to recover. The Zhang family grew anxious when they heard this. How had he been traumatized? What on earth had happened? Zhang Xianwen wouldn't say. Even if I told you, you couldn't solve it anyway. When his childhood friend called, he was at the card table, seething with rage from his losses. The moment he heard what his friend had to say, he exploded, so furious he wanted to flip the mahjong table. Of course, he did make the motion to flip it, but the mahjong table was too heavy for him to budge. He yelled into the phone, "You saw her, and you didn't grab her? You have time to call me." A frantic reply came from the other end. Zhang Xianwen swore. Right? He'd heard that you don't cross the people at Wu Run Yao. You never knew the identity of the people carousing inside, or even what country they were from. Furthermore, any guest who left the building was forbidden from re-entering on the same day. Damn it. Wait for me, I'm on my way. Zhang Xianwen cursed. You're fucking crazy. What the hell were you doing at Fengyao? Is that a place for people in our circle? If this gets out, is your old man's career over, or what? The person on the other end sighed, their voice barely audible through the phone. I was just curious. The 5 burly men were unable to get anywhere near Yunyan. Though she was soaking wet from head to toe, it didn't hinder her agile reactions in the slightest. Before she fell into the hot spring pool, her hands and feet had been freed, which facilitated her quick escape. So when the men approached, she swiftly grabbed a fruit knife from a platter by the pool and slashed out. The slash cut a gash in the arm of the foremost man, and blood began to pour out. The man howled in pain. The other 4 hadn't expected the woman to fight back. They froze for a moment, then moved to grab her. But Yunyan held the knife in a death grip, her back to the edge of the pool, and roared fiercely at the advancing men. It was a fairly long fruit knife, not one of those small paring knives, and getting stabbed by it would be dangerous. For a moment, the 4 men dared not advance. Even a cornered rabbit will bite. The injured man's angry shouts drew attention from outside. 2 bodyguards pushed open the door and saw his bleeding arm, but their expressions remained calm. They made no move to immediately subdue Yunyan. The injured man pointed at Yunyan, indignant. What's going on with you people? Are you playing for keeps? How'd a knife get in here? Everyone had been so worked up moments before that no one had noticed the fruit platter in the room. The bodyguards at the door remained as still as statues. One of them said, "A fruit platter is provided in every room. You provide fruit platters and weapons. Is that it? Look at my wound. You bitch, how dare you attack someone with a knife? You must be tired of living." The man roared Shivu and lunged forward again. Yunyan held the knife level, its tip aimed directly at him. "If you take one more step, the next cut will be to your neck. Don't think I won't do it." The tip of the knife was still stained with blood. Her eyes were resolute and cold, filled with the ferocity of someone prepared to die. For a moment, all the men in the room were stunned, including the man with the bleeding arm. Seizing the opportunity, Yunyan quickly climbed out of the hot spring pool, keeping the knife ready and her eyes fixed warily on them. The man was enraged. He yelled at the bodyguards. "What are you standing there for? Get in here and help." Yunyan tensed. The bodyguards here were strong, not like these drunken cowards in front of her. Just as she was bracing herself for a fight to the death, one of the bodyguards spoke. "I'm sorry, but once the bidding is over, we are not permitted to get involved in what happens in the room." "Fine, then I'll kill her myself." The man was about to explode with anger. He picked up the fruit platter and was about to smash it over Yunyan. The bodyguard spoke up in time. "I'm sorry, you cannot do that." The fruit platter slipped from his grasp and fell into the hot spring, its contents sinking to the bottom. "What do you mean?" "There's a rule here that guests cannot use tools to harm the body of the item. Any harm constitutes a breach of the spirit of the contract and will incur a massive compensation fee," the bodyguard said lightly. "What about me?" the man roared, holding out his bleeding arm for the bodyguard to see. His palm was covered in blood. The gash on his arm was quite large, and blood was still flowing when he moved his hand. "Are you blind?" "I'm the one who's injured," the bodyguard said. "Because you gentlemen are the revelers, we are only responsible for the safety of the item." "What kind of bullshit rule is that?" the man cursed furiously. "Wait a minute," another man realized. "Didn't you just say you broke some woman's leg in the room across the hall? Were you bullshitting, or have the rules here changed?" The man's mask hid the twitching of his face, but the bodyguard at the door spoke up. "Such a thing would not happen at Fengyao. While some guests who come here have special tastes, their activities are limited to the scope of amusement. Just now, a guest bit an item in a fit of excitement. We have already administered the appropriate punishment. He will be permanently banned from entering Fengyao." Seeing the other men staring at him, the injured man lost face and roared, I was just saying it to spice things up, and you believe me? You, he pointed at another man. Weren't you just talking about some raw food banquet? You're all talk, aren't you? That man was displeased. Whether I'm all talk or not is none of your business. Isn't this place supposed to be wild? What's wrong with me suggesting we try it? The injured man spat, his temper flaring. I'm injured. You people have to take responsibility. Then please come out, the bodyguard said. What? You are injured. For your own safety, you should go to the hospital as soon as possible. The bodyguard was like a robot, gentle yet indifferent. But allow me to remind you, you signed a contract upon entering Feng Yao. You're not to speak of it outside. Otherwise, you will bear the consequences. The man clutched his arm, glaring viciously at Yunyan and gritting his teeth. There are still 4 of them here. I don't believe you can stab every one of them. You bitch, you'd better pray you never leave Feng Yao, because if I find you outside, I'll kill you. Though unwilling, the man had to leave. He had a large gash on his arm, after all, and he couldn't avoid getting stitches. The other 4 men didn't react much. One less was better for them. One of them tried a softer approach. Little beauty, don't be afraid. We brothers will be very gentle with you. If you're a good girl, and let us have our fun, we won't torment you, right? That's right, little beauty. You look so pitifully lovely. How could any of us bear to be rough with you? Put the knife down. It's not right to bring a knife to the games of love. Don't come any closer, Yunyan shouted sharply. Don't be a fucking prude. Let's all go at once. I'd like to see how many she can stab. One man finally lost his patience. The 4 of us can't handle one woman. Bitch, once we get you off, let's see you brandish that thing at me again. Once my gun comes out, I guarantee you'll be nice and obedient. Get out, you animals. Yunyan screamed hysterically. Just as the words left her mouth, a cry of pain rang out as someone was violently thrown into the room. Who the hell? The 4 men were startled. One of them had just started to shout when he turned his head and froze. The other 3 looked over and were similarly stunned. Yunyan didn't dare look around, terrified that a man would lunge at her if she let her guard down for a second. She gripped the knife so tightly her fingers ached. The man who had just left was back. To be precise, he had been kicked back in, and not lightly. He had tumbled into the room, landing sprawled on his back, the wound on his arm still bleeding. His mask was knocked askew, barely covering half his face. The door was wide open. The man on the floor groaned in pain. A man walked in. Seeing that something was wrong, one of the 4 remaining men yelled at the newcomer. Take your grudges outside to settle. Don't ruin my fun. The man lifted his eyelids, his gaze falling upon the 4 of them. For some reason, a sudden terror gripped their hearts. But with so many people present, they couldn't back down. One of them mustered his courage and snapped. Who the hell are you to come in here and cause trouble? Are you tired of living? Out of the corner of her eye, Yunyan glanced at the door and froze. It was Lao Lu. He was... Suddenly, a cold, deep voice rose. You're the one who wanted the raw food banquet, weren't you? The voice was enough to make the temperature in the room plummet. Everyone present, including Yunyan, shivered. She shivered because the voice was familiar. Jiang Yinyan. As he walked into the room, Lao Lu stepped slightly to the side. The light from the hallway fell on Jiang Yinyan's shoulders. Backlit, his face was hidden in shadow, like an emissary from hell, wreathed in an aura of death. Icy, sinister, without a trace of human warmth. When Yunyan saw this figure enter, she didn't feel a shred of relief. Instead, her heart pounded even harder. Wave after wave of fear washed over her, and she gripped the knife that was her only protection even tighter. Her slender fingertips dug into her palm, which stung with pain. Her nails must have broken the skin. But no pain could compare to the ache in her heart. It was Jiang Yinyan who had personally ordered Lao Lu to bring her here. He had pushed her into this abyss of eternal damnation based on nothing more than his baseless suspicions. What if there hadn't been a fruit knife in this room? What if she hadn't fought back with all her might? Would her fate right now be the same as the girls in the other rooms? What was he doing here now? Had he come to see how she had been defiled? Or was he upset to see that she hadn't been? Was he planning to take her somewhere else? He might as well just kill her. It would be a mercy. Resentment surged in Yunyan's heart. She wished the knife in her hand could be plunged into Jiang Yinyan's body, but she knew she couldn't kill him. The Ion of the past had carried her on his back through rivers of blood, most of which belonged to others. The Jiang Yinyan of today was far more powerful than he had been then. She was no match for him at all, not to mention he had Lao Lu by his side. The fact that Lao Lu could kick a grown man into the room with a single blow was a testament to his skill. Jiang Yinyan walked in. He wasn't wearing a mask, and his face was clearly visible in the light. One of the men seemed to recognize him. He began to tremble all over, and his knees went weak, causing him to collapse to the floor with a thud. Seeing this, the others, though they didn't know who the newcomer was, understood that anyone who could scare one of their own into collapsing was not to be trifled with. For a moment, they dared not speak. The man who had been asked about the raw food banquet clearly didn't recognize Jiang Yinyan. Though intimidated by the man's powerful aura, he gritted his teeth, clinging to his male pride. I was just making a request. What's wrong with that? Don't they say you can do anything you want at Feng Yao? The man fought back his fear. The Feng Yao in the Golden Triangle is much wilder than this. Lao Lu, standing behind Jiang Yinyan, sneered. So you've been there? Even the Feng Yao in the Golden Triangle wouldn't dare to host a raw food banquet so lightly. Jiang Yinyan raised a hand slightly, and Lao Lu fell silent. He surveyed the room, his gaze sliding past Yunyan, who was huddled in a corner. The corner of his lips curled into a sharp arc, but his eyes quickly moved away, returning to the face of the man who had spoken. Soon, someone brought in a chair, a simple, clean one with metal legs and a wooden seat. Lao Lu carried it in and placed it in the center of the room. Jiang Yinyan sat down. He didn't sit on the room's sofa. Perhaps he found it dirty. Seeing this, Yunyan sneered inwardly. Could anyone's soul be dirtier than his? The man with the injured arm was lying at Jiang Yinyan's feet. He tried to move, but saw Jiang Yinyan slowly raise his foot and step on his arm, causing him to cry out in pain. His tone was deceptively soft as he looked down and asked the man, "Can you be quiet?" The man trembled, not daring to move an inch more. Seemingly satisfied, Jiang Yinyan wiped the blood from the sole of his pristine leather shoe on the man's back. Jiang Yinyan turned his head slightly. A raw food banquet, was it? Lao Lu called for Sister Qin. Lao Lu nodded and turned to leave. He returned quickly with Sister Qin. Upon entering, she first glanced around the room, and when she saw that Yunyan was unharmed, she let out a silent sigh of relief. She approached respectfully, her voice soft. "Your orders, sir." Jiang Yinyan's gaze remained fixed on the man's mask, a faint, humorless smile on his face. "Since this guest won a raw food banquet, you should satisfy him. We wouldn't want outsiders to think Feng Yao's hospitality is lacking." Sister Qin said, not understanding at first. She subconsciously glanced at Lao Lu, and after catching his eye, she understood immediately. Very well. Sister Qin's voice was always gentle. She then glided out of the room. In less than 10 minutes, 2 bodyguards carried a table into the room. There was something on it, covered by a red cloth, forming a lumpy shape. The moment it was set down, a foul odor filled the room. Even with their masks on, the men present could smell it, and they frantically pressed their hands over the nose areas of their masks. The red cloth was whisked away, revealing a dead pig. Its belly was split open, the blood congealed. But along the edges of the gash, maggots could be seen squirming. The foul smell was because the pig had been dead for some time. The other men present saw this and hid far away, some even gagging, a direct physiological response. Although Yunyan was not as tense as before, she still stood there motionless. She smelled the foul odor, but remained unperturbed. Compared to the despair of falling into hell just moments ago, even if the pig in front of her was putrid, even if it was decaying and festering, it was at least real, reminding her that this was still reality, and she hadn't completely fallen into hell. As for what trick Jiang Yinyan was playing, she didn't know. He pushed her into the abyss, knowing full well what was in it, and now he was feigning concern, pretending to uphold justice and save her from dire straits. Did he expect her to be grateful? Even now, she hadn't given up the idea of stabbing him. The man froze, not moving. Old Lu shouted, "What are you doing standing there? What? Are the worms inside alive, and you still find them not fresh enough?" The man got angry, waving his hand. "Who the hell are you guys? You think I'm scared of you?" Saying so, he started to walk out. But as soon as his front foot stepped out of the room, Old Lu kicked him. Yunyan saw the kick clearly. It was no ordinary force. The man screamed, was kicked out, and then there was the sound of a heavy object falling. Soon, Old Lu dragged the man back. He was dragged back by the scruff of his neck like a dead dog. He was thrown in front of the dead pig, and Old Lu coldly ordered, "Eat." Throughout the process, Jiang Yinyan watched calmly, his expression undisturbed. Of the 5 men, 2 had been dealt with, and the other 3 were so scared they didn't dare move. The man who was kicked was badly hurt. It was difficult for him to even stand up for a while, and he was sweating from the pain. Jiang Yinyan subtly glanced at Old Lu. Old Lu received the silent command and reached out, pulling the man to Jiang Yinyan. The man was still struggling, so Old Lu kicked him again, and the man fell to his knees with a thud. The man with the bleeding arm, seeing this, flinched, his mask askew, but he didn't dare to adjust it. Jiang Yinyan leaned forward slightly and reached out to remove the man's mask. The man initially jumped in fright, instinctively trying to cover his face, but after Old Lu's shout, he stopped moving. However, he still showed some backbone, raising his eyes to stare at Jiang Yinyan. Jiang Yinyan looked at him, then at Old Lu. Old Lu had already pulled up the man's information and handed his phone to Jiang Yinyan. Jiang Yinyan merely glanced at the information, then smiled faintly. No wonder you know so much. Chief of Police, is this your jurisdiction? Holidaying in Beishur or a joint investigation? Don't tell me. Your Chinese is quite good. From Yunyan's angle, she could see the man's face. He wasn't Chinese, somewhat mixed race, with dark, rough skin, thick eyebrows, a bulbous nose, and rather thick lips. His appearance was quite indescribable. The chief of police straightened his back when he heard this. You know my identity and still dare to be so presumptuous? If anything happens to me, you'll be in deep trouble. Jiang Yinyan didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed, a slight curve to his lips, as if he'd heard something ridiculous. He looked down at the man. Even if I cripple you today, what can you do? Chief, a place like Fengyao shouldn't be somewhere you come to. But for what you just said, you're a regular at Fengyao's headquarters. May I ask, given your position as chief of police, is that allowed? The chief of police's face twitched. How about this? Jiang Yinyan continued. To balance things out for the chief, I should reciprocate. Otherwise, someday when the chief comes to his senses, he won't know who forced him to eat this raw food feast. As Jiang Yinyan spoke, he gestured to the burly man in the corner. Drag him over. Old Lu obeyed, striding forward and grabbing the man's collar, pulling him over. There was a puddle of liquid where he had been standing. The liquid was dragged along the floor. Yunyan's heart trembled. Was that liquid? It wasn't liquid at all. Realizing this, Yunyan was utterly horrified. A burly man like that was so scared of Jiang Yinyan that he would himself? Yunyan was suspicious. She clearly knew Jiang Yinyan's identity. But was it merely because he was the crown prince of Beijing? If it was just that identity, he shouldn't be this terrified, right? Could he have another identity? Thinking of this possibility, Yunyan's breathing became rapid. Could he have an identity that would make people tremble with fear? The burly man didn't dare to look up when he was in front of Jiang Yinyan. It was Jiang Yinyan who reached out and removed the man's mask. The face beneath the mask was already pale, and he looked up in terror. Zhan. He only uttered one word before Jiang Yinyan smiled, raised his hand, and placed his slender index finger against his thin lips, making a shushing gesture. The man immediately fell silent. Tell him, Old Lu barked. The man nodded repeatedly, leaned over to the chief of police, and whispered something in his ear. The chief of police's expression changed from initial indignation to astonishment, and finally, to terror. After the man finished speaking, the chief of police collapsed to the ground, trembling all over, his mouth opening and closing, almost calling out Jiang Yinyan's name, but he swallowed it back. He bowed his head to the ground, pleading repeatedly, Please, Your Excellency, be magnanimous and let me go. I really didn't know it was you. Fearing that Jiang Yinyan was still angry, he slapped himself several times, cursing himself as he did so. I was blind, I was foolish, I didn't know my place. Jiang Yinyan said calmly, I'm not a kind person, so you don't need to apologize to me. He leaned back in his chair. The chief of police stopped his actions when he heard this, but his heart remained utterly terrified. He had heard of this man's reputation. His methods were extremely ruthless. Some people secretly said that he had no humanity, and anyone he targeted would surely suffer a fate worse than death. Jiang Yinyan didn't look at him, nor did he care about how others looked at him. He lifted his chin towards the short man in the corner. That man obviously knew him, but only knew him as the crown prince of Beijing. Being singled out like this immediately scared him into paralysis. Before Old Lu could react, he started begging for mercy. Young Master Yin, spare me, please. His pleas for mercy didn't stop before Old Lu dragged him over. Jiang Yinyan leaned forward slightly, chuckled, and asked him, You know me? The man nodded repeatedly, quickly took off his mask, and said fawningly, We met at a bidding conference a long time ago. Of course, I'm a small fry and not qualified to sit with you, young Master Yin. You probably don't remember me. A small fry dares to enter this room? Jiang Yinyan sneered. The man forced a smile. Compared to you, young Master Yin, I am absolutely a small fry. Old Lu leaned over and whispered the man's identity to Jiang Yinyan. Jiang Yinyan's lips curled into a smile when he heard it. Your old man is chasing after that World Trade land like a dog after a bone, and here you are, squandering your family's fortune. If the higher-ups knew you came to a place like this, let alone the World Trade land, even the projects your old man painstakingly secured would have to be spat out. The man's face turned pale at this, and he knelt before Jiang Yinyan, begging for mercy repeatedly. Jiang Yinyan was unmoved. He pinched the man's face and turned it towards Yunyan. Yunyan saw his face clearly with this twist and was astonished. She recognized him. He was the son of Su Jindong, the philanthropy magnate, the only son of the Su family. The Su family had been in business for 3 generations, starting in the Pearl River Delta, then expanding their industries nationwide, and in recent years, actively developing overseas markets. The Su family's presence was indispensable in all kinds of major disaster and minor emergency situations, especially this young Master Su. Although his appearance was not particularly handsome, he was very considerate in his dealings with people. Moreover, she had previously interacted with young Master Su at a banquet, where other rich young men harassed her and young Master Su spoke up for justice. So Yunyan had a good impression of him. She never expected. Young Master Su didn't dare to look directly into Yunyan's eyes, which were filled with disbelief. He lowered his face and said awkwardly, I know her. Jiang Yunyan smiled. So, who are you calling bitch? And Jiang Yunyan said with a half-smile, your gun is very hard? No, young Master Yin, let me explain, You mean as soon as you put on a mask, your true nature is exposed, and you've been coveting Miss Yu for a long time, haven't you? Jiang Yunyan's tone was as light as a breeze. Because you couldn't get her, you wanted to destroy her, isn't that right? Young Master Su's face twitched, and he smiled unnaturally. Young Master Yin misunderstood. Those rumors were spread by you first, weren't they? Jiang Yunyan sneered. Young Master Su, your old man donates money everywhere, and you spread rumors everywhere. Young Master Su's face was beyond tense and ugly, and he began to kowtow again. Jiang Yunyan spoke calmly. Young Master Su stopped his actions, looking at Jiang Yunyan uneasily. He had heard before that Jiang Yunyan was not an easy person to deal with, and everyone who met him would feel a chill. From today's situation, the ruthlessness behind Jiang Yunyan was truly terrifying. Jiang Yunyan lowered his gaze. The Su family only has one son, and your old man is quite difficult. I won't break your arms and legs, nor will I make you suffer like a living dead person lying in bed for the rest of your life. But trouble comes from your mouth, so you have to learn from your mistakes. Old Lu, take him out. Old Lu obeyed, stepping forward and grabbing young Master Su. Young Master Su screamed like a pig, trying to hug Jiang Yunyan's leg to beg for mercy. But old Lu was quick and agile. He held him with one hand and covered his mouth with the other, preventing him from making any more noise to disturb Jiang Yunyan. He was quickly dragged away. Yunyan was stunned throughout the whole process. Only at this moment did she realize where the rumors came from. The atmosphere in the room was extremely tense. Although Jiang Yunyan showed no anger throughout, his calm tone made it even more chilling. Jiang Yunyan didn't speak, and no one else dared to say much, not even daring to breathe loudly. After a moment, he finally spoke, unhurriedly. When this chief of police proposed a raw food feast, you all seemed quite interested, right? The others immediately expressed their positions, saying that they were just following the trend and joining the fun, and if there really was a raw food feast, they wouldn't dare to eat it. Jiang Yunyan chuckled. It's too tiring to settle accounts one by one. How about this? As long as this chief of police eats these things, you won't have to. As for how you get the chief to eat, that's your business. The others were slightly stunned. The chief of police thought his ordeal was over, but he didn't expect to have to eat such disgusting things. He was both angry and annoyed. Although Jiang Yunyan's background was terrifying, at this moment he didn't care. Blood rushed to his head, and he ignored the pain in his leg, scrambled up from the ground, and attacked Jiang Yunyan. Even as a chief of police, he prided himself on his combat skills. But before his fist could reach Jiang Yunyan slightly tilted his head, dodged his punch, stood up, and neatly kicked out. The kick landed on the chief of police's stomach, sending his rather heavy body flying backward. He clutched his stomach and writhed on the ground in pain. Jiang Yunyan slowly approached him, leaned down, and powerfully grasped his arm, twisted it with force, and a snapping sound was heard, accompanied by the chief of police's hysterical scream. His arm was broken. It was literally broken. Jiang Yunyan straightened up, adjusted his cuff, and his sharp gaze swept across the faces of the others. That one look made the others dare not delay any longer. They rushed towards the chief of police, and even the one with the injured arm didn't dare to feign death, joining the others in pulling at the chief of police. The chief of police screamed repeatedly, being dragged and pulled by the others and pressed against the dead pig. They disregarded his struggles and stuffed the rotten meat and decaying worms into his mouth. This made Yunyan feel disgusted as well. As the chief of police's muffled cries and struggles, and the ugly faces of the others trying to save themselves, mingled into one scene, Jiang Yunyan slowly approached Yunyan. A sense of tension and suffocation swept over her. Yunyan suddenly raised her knife and swung it at him, angrily shouting, "Don't come any closer! Don't you dare come near me!" She was like a hedgehog with all its quills raised, her heart pounding in her throat, her eyes fixed on Jiang Yunyan, filled with icy coldness. Jiang Yunyan merely glanced at the knife in her hand, his long eyelashes concealing the darkness deep within his eyes. With just a knife, he asked calmly, "How do you think your fighting skills compare to that chief of police?" Yunyan gripped the knife tightly. If looks could kill, Jiang Yinyan would have died countless times. She gritted her teeth. "Jiang Yinyan, what are you pretending to be a good person for? Whose fault is it that I'm here? What? You want me to thank you, don't you? Thank you for letting me see the ugliness of human nature, for letting me see that I was blessed but didn't know it when I was by your side. Is that it?" Jiang Yinyan frowned slightly and stepped forward. "Don't move. Jiang Yinyan, don't push me. If you push me too far, I don't know what I'll do." Yunyan roared angrily. Jiang Yinyan stopped moving and said in a deep voice, "I gave you that knife for self-defense, so now you want to kill me?" "Yes, I wish I could kill you." Yunyan's emotions ran high. "What right do you have to do this to me? Jiang Yinyan, why? Am I your enemy? Have I harmed you or killed your whole family? Where are you now? Is it father's debt daughter repays? If you really want revenge, why didn't you do it when Yuan was alive? Why wait until he's gone to torment his children? What kind of man are you? If you have the guts, compete with his children in the business world." Jiang Yinyan's brows were furrowed when he heard the first part of her words, but he smiled at the end. "What does the Yu family have now?" At this moment, Yunyan dared to confront Jiang Yinyan, so there was nothing she was afraid to say. "Jiang Yinyan, what are you afraid of? Why don't you want me to contact Si Tingyuan? You're afraid Si Tingyuan will be persuaded by me to continue cooperating with the Yu family. You're afraid the Yu family will make a comeback. You're afraid you'll no longer have any leverage to hold over me and Yuanzhou." Yunyan stared at him, articulating every word clearly. "Since you hate the Yu family so much, why don't I give you an idea? Just kill both me and Yuanzhou to get it over with. It would save you all the trouble." Jiang Yinyan's expression grew colder. "You think I don't dare to kill you, is that it? Of course you dare. What wouldn't you dare to do when you can come and go from a place like this as you please? You have other connections, don't you? Things that young Master Yin can't do. I'm sure your other identities can," Yunyan said, her jaw tight and her face cold. Jiang Yinyan watched her for a long moment, and the hostility in his brow gradually dissipated. Seeing this change in his expression, Yunyan's heart trembled. She wasn't actually afraid of his rage. On the contrary, the more emotional a person was, the more their inner thoughts were revealed, making it easier for others to discover their weaknesses. Jiang Yinyan was someone who never let his emotions show on his face. The young Yin had been just like that, exceptionally composed, with a frighteningly steady heart. After knowing him for so many years, Yinyan had once thought she understood him quite well, but that was only what she had assumed. She wanted to provoke Jiang Yinyan, and Jiang Yinyan seemed to realize this. The corners of his mouth lifted into a slight curve as he stared at her. "Yinyan, don't do things you're not good at. For example," he took a slow step forward, "making threats." Yunyan froze, then thrust the knife out. "Don't come any closer. Your words are resolute, but you can't do it. If you truly wanted me to kill you, you'd have to have nothing left to care about," Jiang Yinyan said with a faint smile. "You want the Yu family to make a comeback. You want Yuanzhou to be safe. You have too much on your mind. Are you willing to die? Even if you are, can you guarantee that Yuanzhou wants to die with you?" Yunyan stared at him, shouting sharply, "Stay back. I told you to stay back. I've said it before. Unless I grow tired of you, you will obey me. So you'd better put the knife down. You want to kill me? You're far from capable enough." Seeing that Jiang Yinyan didn't stop, Yunyan steeled herself, turned the knife, and slashed it towards the artery in her own neck. Jiang Yinyan hadn't expected her to turn the blade on herself. His expression changed, and he lunged forward, clamping a hand around her wrist. Unexpectedly, Yinyan quickly switched the knife to her other hand and plunged it into Jiang Yinyan's chest. She stabbed him with force, using all the strength she had. Jiang Yinyan had been so focused on stopping her from killing herself that he never anticipated her feint, leaving his chest an exposed target. He slowly lowered his head, looking at the fruit knife in his chest. A pale hand gripped the handle tightly, so forcefully that the knuckles had turned white. Although his suit jacket offered some protection, it was no match for the sharp blade, and he could feel that she had truly put all her strength into it. All her strength to kill him. Even so, Jiang Yinyan kept his grip on her wrist, refusing to let go. Only when the knife went in did Yunyan realize what she had done. Her intention to stab herself had been real, driven by the thought, "If I can't hurt you, I won't give you the chance to hurt me." But in the next instant, the impulse to stab him had also been overwhelming, and so she had switched hands and plunged the knife in. To be honest, she hadn't expected Jiang Yinyan not to dodge, just to take the blow. Although she had wished him dead, this was the first time she had ever actively stabbed someone. For a moment, her hand trembled. Blood seeped out along the blade, and though it wasn't obvious on the dark suit, a patch of wetness was visible. Looking at Jiang Yinyan, beads of sweat had formed on his forehead. He was clearly enduring the pain. There was a sound at the door. Jiang Yinyan commanded in a low voice, "Pull the knife out." Yunyan's mind was blank, and her answer was subconscious. "If you pull it out, it will bleed more." Footsteps entered the room, more than one person. Lao Lu came forward. "Young Master Yin, Su," he stopped, taking in the scene with astonishment. "Miss Yu, pull out." Jiang Yinyan ignored Lao Lu, his eyes fixed on Yunyan. "Pull out the same way you stuck it in. Do you want everyone outside to know?" The footsteps of several bodyguards drew near. Lao Lu turned slightly, blocking their view of the scene, and barked at the doorway. "No one comes in." The footsteps halted outside. Seeing her pale face, Jiang Yinyan was speechless for a moment. "Miss Yu, I'm the one who got stabbed." With that, he placed his hand over hers on the knife and pulled it out in one motion. He let out a muffled grunt, beads of sweat the size of peas on his forehead. The wound was deep. Though not immediately fatal, it was bleeding freely. Now, Jiang Yinyan's voice was low and deep as he leaned his face toward hers. "You either finish me off with one more stab and never make it out of this room, or you cooperate with me quietly, and we walk out of here." Yunyan's senses gradually returned. Jiang Yinyan couldn't die, at least not in a way that would take her down with him. Besides, was he really that easy to kill? "How do we get out?" she asked. And her clothes were a mess. How could she be seen like this? Jiang Yinyan leaned one hand on her, as if for support. With difficulty, he took off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Put on." Beneath the jacket, his black shirt was already soaked through with a large patch of wetness. An inexplicable panic seized Yunyan's heart, as if she were seeing the once near-death Yen. She immediately did as he said. He was much taller than her, so the suit jacket completely covered her disheveled state. "Put your arms around me," Jiang Yinyan ordered again. Yunyan stepped forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. In the next moment, he lifted her up, forcing her legs to wrap around his waist. Her entire upper body was pressed against his chest, perfectly concealing his wound. "You'd better hold on tight," Jiang Yinyan breathed, his voice slightly strained if one listened closely. "I'm not made of iron. If I lose too much blood, I'll be unsteady on my feet." Yunyan could only comply. When Jiang Yinyan turned around with her in his arms, his expression was back to normal. To any observer, he was simply carrying a woman in a perfectly normal, albeit intimate way. Only Yunyan could feel the tension in his body and the damp, cool patch of the blood-soaked suit against her skin. As he carried Yunyan past the men, Jiang Yinyan spoke coolly. "If anyone dares to speak a word of what happened tonight, they won't have a peaceful day for the rest of their lives." Although the men had been busy forcing the police chief to eat raw pork and hadn't dared to turn and look at what had just happened, they had heard everything. Warned by Jiang Yinyan, they quickly assured him they had heard nothing and hadn't even seen them. Jiang Yinyan left, carrying Yunyan. As they walked out, Yunyan noticed many bodyguards lining the corridor along with waiters coming and going, and quite a few guests looking their way. Jiang Yinyan wasn't wearing a mask. Even if his face was recognized, any guest leaving this place would know not to talk. But if it was discovered that he was injured, that would be another matter entirely and would surely cause an uproar. Lao Lu walked ahead, shouting, "What are you looking at? You don't want your eyes anymore." The surrounding crowd quickly dispersed. Regardless of who the man was, he was clearly preoccupied with the girl in his arms, and it was best not to offend him. Sister Qin personally came out to see them off. Just as they neared the exit, Lao Lu stopped her, telling her to go no further. Sister Qin was a sharp woman. Even without seeing, she could guess most of what had happened. She lowered her voice and asked Lao Lu, "Is he hurt?" Lao Lu's brow furrowed. "Are you looking to die? Don't ask what you shouldn't." Sister Qin wasn't afraid of Lao Lu. She sighed and waved a hand. "Hurry to the hospital, then. I don't know what kind of drama you're all up to. What kind of grudge would make you throw a girl in here? And now that you've thrown her in, you're taking her out again. It'd be a miracle if she didn't stab you."